So I want to welcome all of our Atlanta area churches, those of you who are watching from all over the country, all over the world. Friends down there at Lake Oconee. Got some folks in campsites now that watch every week and gather together. So give yourselves a big hand for those of you who are camping, traveling around. If you're in a hotel room, maybe you're driving, I hope you're listening and not watching. But anyway, we're so glad to be a part of this giant and growing network of people all over the world who are discovering that it's not just what you believe, it's how you behave. It's not simply believing something, but it's following Jesus. And that's what we're gonna talk about today. Today I'm beginning a brand new series, a three-part series entitled The Weight of Your Words. The weight of your words. We've all been told, or we've all heard that actions speak louder than words. And when it comes to meeting new people or acquaintances or that new neighbor, those people who are a little bit arm's length, that's probably true. But when it comes to the relationships that are the most intimate relationships, romantic relationships, even close friends, personal relationships, family relationships, actions and words, they run a close first and second. And it just kind of depends on what's going on, because sometimes words actually speak louder than actions. In fact, the more intimate the relationship, the louder, or to the point of this series, the weightier our words become, the greater their capacity to leave a mark, right? For good or for bad. To build or destroy, to encourage or discourage, to inspire or possibly even wound. Words in those close relationships, they're powerful. And this is what I think underscores how powerful words are more than anything. In those more intimate relationships, family relationships and parent-child relationships, even words left unsaid are powerful. In fact, and this may be your story, and I'm not trying to stir up emotion, but just to emphasize the importance of what we're gonna talk about for the next few weeks. Unsaid words can impact the trajectory of a life. I've never met anyone, maybe you've had this experience, but I've never had anyone quote to me what a neighbor never said or a coworker never said. But in my life, dozens of students, college students, high school students, adults, even senior adults, have quoted back to me a sentence that their father never said to them, that they would have given anything to hear their father say. And they say to me what was not said that they wish had been said, that they would say, and maybe this is your story, would have impacted the trajectory of their lives. I love you. I'm proud of you. And if that's emotional for you, I think to some extent it's emotional for all of us. Nothing, think about this, nothing underscores the significance of words. Nothing underscores the significance of the words we choose more than the fact that unspoken words can influence the trajectory of a life. The point being that words carry weight. Don't raise your hand. Have you ever been, kind of cheered up a little bit, have you ever been crushed by someone's words? Let's all go back to high school for just a minute. Let's just be friends. It's like, oh no, I've always thought of you more as a brother. A brother? I've always thought of you more as a sister. A sister? Gross. That's not what I was thinking, right? But isn't it true? Our lives have been shaped and impacted by the words spoken to us, the words spoken over us, words spoken at us, and certainly words spoken about us. It shaped our childhood. It shaped in some cases, it's shaping your marriage, or unshaping or reshaping or reforming your marriage. It impacts our work environments, our confidence. Honestly, the words spoken to us and over us, especially by the people most important to us, actually impact who we see in the mirror. But here's the twist, and here's kind of the hard right turn. As obvious as it is, and as important as it is that words spoken to us and about us have impacted us, I mean, none of us would doubt that, and none of us would push back on that. And as obvious as it is, and as impacted as we've been by the words spoken to us and about us, it's still so easy for us to underestimate the significance of the words we choose when we speak to others. Because there's something in me that I just don't think I have that much power with my words. And you just think that, hey, my words are my words. I mean, a word is a word. I mean, I'm just an average person. But when it comes to those relationships that are most important to us, and those relationships where we are important to somebody else, we're always going to be tempted to underestimate the power and the weight of our words. We're slow to recognize how our words impact other people, which should bother all of us. I mean, this isn't like a religious thing or a Christian thing. This is just a thing. That's why this series is important for everybody, regardless of your faith tradition, or maybe you don't even have a faith tradition. But if you're a Jesus follower, or if you're seeking to follow Jesus, this is extraordinarily important, because it is baked in. The words we choose and the importance of the words we choose are baked into what it means to follow Jesus. So what we're gonna do in this series is we're gonna unpack 3 dynamics that are at work in every conversation you have with the people that matter most to you. Family, friends, maybe even people you work with, even some people perhaps who work for you. These are 3 dynamics, this is important, 3 dynamics that determine what people hear regardless of what we actually say. 3 dynamics that are always at work in every conversation, especially with the people that matter most to us. 3 dynamics that determine what people hear regardless of what we actually say. And the interesting thing is, we've all been on the receiving end of all 3 of these, which means it would seem like we would be dialed in and we would be able to keep these front and center in our relationship and our communication. But for some reason, and we'll explore why in a little bit, for some reason that often is not the case. So today we're gonna unpack the first of the 3, but before we jump into that, I wanna give you a little bit of incentive, okay? Because Jesus followers, we have to get this right. This is part of what it means to follow Jesus. It's not optional, it's actually baked in to the process. So in a letter that the Apostle Paul wrote in the 1st century to Christians living in the ancient city of Ephesus, in the middle of this letter, he unpacks for them what we often refer to as Jesus' a new covenant command. Jesus' new covenant command, his marching orders for his followers were very simple. He came to give us one new command. It's the overarching command that should inform all of our actions or reactions, and should certainly impact our words. And that new covenant command was, he said, you are to love one another, not the way you've been loved. You are to love one another the way that I have loved you. That you are to love one another the way that God, through me, Jesus would say, has loved you. And if you're new to us, or new to one of our churches, or you're new watching online, the way we say it around here is this. We ask the question, what does love require of me? What does love require of me? When you're not sure what to say or do, you just do what love requires of you. That's what it means. That's what it looks like to follow Jesus. But when we talk about that special kind of love, it is already defined for us. It becomes predefined. So here's Paul's words as we jump into the incentive behind why we should pay attention to these 3 communication dynamics. He writes this, he says, follow God's example, therefore, as dearly loved children, because we're children of God, and, here it is, and walk in the way of love. And you expect some soft, romantic music. The way of love. It's so romantic. It's so soft. It's so passive. And Paul would say, wrong. You're absolutely wrong. It's none of those things. It's bold. It's intentional. Sometimes it's offensive. It's always sacrificial. And when you get it right, it's attention getting. Because the way of love has been modeled for us. Now, I know I say this all the time, but I'm gonna keep saying it. This is so important. Remember this. We get to choose, or you get to choose. We get to choose whether or not we follow Jesus. That's your decision. We do not get to choose what following Jesus looks like, reacts like, or sounds like. We do not get to choose what it looks like, sounds like, or reacts like. We don't get to choose. We don't have, too much margin when it comes to the words we choose, because it's been modeled for us. Jesus did not leave that option open to us. He invites you to follow, but once you step into fellowship, there are some guidelines, because we are to love other people the way that God through Christ has loved us. He prescribed this for us. So here's Paul's version of that. He says this, walk in the way of love, and here it is, just as Christ loved us. So we don't get to define this. We get to define ourselves by this. We're to love just as Christ loved us, and here it is, and gave himself. It's always sacrificial. It's not soft, it's intentional, and gave himself up for us. So if you want to know what the way of love looks like, if you want to know what Christian love is supposed to look like and sound like, you just follow Jesus through the Gospels, and then he turns to us and he says, I want you to follow me. Now, the Apostle Paul takes this big overarching idea and he applies it specifically to the words we choose. So here's what the way of love sounds like. Here's what the way of Jesus sounds like. Here's what the way of Jesus talks like. The weight of our words. And here it is. Do not, he says, do not let any unwholesome word come out of your mouths. And this word unwholesome, we've talked about this before, means stinky. It was used to refer to rotting fish, distasteful, offensive. And Paul says, look, your mouth is like a gate, and you need to stand guard over the gate of your mouth, because stinky, unwholesome, unhealthy words are gonna rush the gate, and you just don't let them through. Now, I know I've only been talking for a few minutes, but we could just stop right there. We could just all go home and work on that for a week or a month. And you're living with some people who would be so happy for you to begin working on that immediately. Just stand guard over your mouth. Your mouth stinks, your words stink, you're unhelpful, unhealthy. And and this is what we do. We always say, I'm just telling you the truth. I'm just being honest. Let me just give you a tip, okay? This is not my notes, okay? This little tip about honesty. Honesty is saying what is true. It's not saying everything that's true. Honesty is making sure that what you say is true. Honesty is not saying everything that's true. If you say everything that's true, you won't have any friends. None, zero, okay? So it's not, well, I'm just being honest. No, you're just being a jerk is what you're being, okay? So we have to stand guard over our mouth so that unhelpful, stinky words don't come rushing out. And if you do, somebody will be glad you did. So we can stop there, but we're not gonna stop there. We're gonna keep going because that's just the don't, that's the negative. Then Paul turns the page and he says, here's what you are supposed to do. Here's what the way of love sounds like. But only, in other words, don't let unwholesome words come out of your mouth, but only these kinds of words. Be selective. Check their ID. Clear plastic purses only, and no backpacks, okay? We're not sneaking anything in. But only words that are good, imagine if we did this, for building others up according to their needs. Now again, this just sounds so soft. You know what it sounds like for some of us? It sounds unproductive. Like, can you really raise a child talking like that? Can you do a performance review at work that way? So we'd really like you to come to work occasionally, and on time. I mean, I don't want to offend anybody, but just if you would just come to work. Now this is important, especially if you're not a Christian, this is so important. This, in fact, you may be like, I'm not sure I ever want to become one. Paul is not saying be nice. This is way bigger than that. His point was, I want you to use your words to build. This is about building others up. That words are like construction material. And when you leave the construction site, when you exit the conversation, the person on the other side of you should feel built up. Something should be better as a result. But for that to happen, we have to hit pause. For that to happen, we need to be slower to speak and quicker to listen, as James, the brother of Jesus, tells us. For that to happen, to some extent, we have to be a student of the person on the other side of us, especially when it's somebody we care about, and especially when it's somebody we love. And the reason I say that is because Paul says you are, and this is so hard, we are to tailor our words to their needs. Now, this is where I struggle, okay? Because, and maybe this is just me, but I just want to confess, and I'm going to put it on the screen. Here's my confession. I'm confident that they need to hear what I need to say. I mean, if we're having a conversation, there's conflict or something needs to be said. I mean, I'm kind of, it's kind of building up inside of me, and I got to get this out. And so I have a tendency, like some of you, to talk to people according to my need. I choose my words based on my need, not their need. And the reason I'm confident that they need to hear what I have to say is because once I say it, I feel so much better. And when I walk away feeling better, I'm thinking, I think that was successful. And my Heavenly Father's going, no, you just destroyed, you just tore down, you just undermined. Andy, I'm so glad you feel better about what you said, but you use words that appeal to your need, not his need or her need, and you are supposed to choose words that appeal to their needs and fill the gap of their needs, not your own. And I'm like, yeah, but I just felt so good, I don't understand why they don't feel good too. The truth is, most of us, I'm kind of judging you a little bit, but most of us are more dialed into, isn't this true? Most of us are more dialed into what we need to say than what others need to hear. Jesus followers don't do that. When Jesus followers catch themselves doing that, they hit pause and they go, oh, there I go again. Being selfish, it's subtle selfishness, but it's still selfish. Because I'm choosing my words based on what I need, not what the person on the other side of me needs to hear. Sometimes we hesitate to say what they need to hear, right? Sometimes we hesitate because it makes us uncomfortable to say what they need to hear. So we dial it down too much and they don't hear what they need to hear, and consequently there's not a change, and we say, well, I told them. And somebody's like, no, I don't think you told them. I think you said some things, but you didn't really communicate what they need. Well, I don't want to hurt any feelings. Well, sometimes love hurts feelings, doesn't it? Sometimes love says things that are first not so appealing and more offensive, but they need to be said. Depending on your personality, you can overdo that or underdo that. But that's Paul's point, is I want you to love with your words, which means I want you to choose your words according to their needs and not your own. Sometimes we fear their rejection. And before long, my words are all about me. I select my words with me in mind. I say what's most helpful to me according to my needs. Parents do this, friends do this, husbands do this, wives do this, fiancés do this. And here's the thing, I want to be fair, that's fine if you care more about you than the person on the other side of you. Jesus didn't make it about him. He made it about others, and he invites us to follow and to follow with our words. Paul concludes this way. He says this. He says, but only words that are good for building others up according to their needs, that, and now he's going to give us the win. Here's the win. Here's the finish line. Here's the goal line. Here's the reason we're even talking about this. That it may, look at this, benefit those who listen. Our words should be beneficial. Our words should leave people better off. Another way of saying it, our words should be a gift that once they have time to let it all settle in, they would feel like saying to us what people have said to you sometimes, even when you've delivered tough news. Thank you. I didn't like it in the moment, but thank you. That's what I needed to hear. Now, you know this, but I'll just say it anyway. There are right ways to say hard things, because hard things need to be said sometimes, right? We all need to hear some hard things. But here's the thing, okay? Then we're gonna move on. And you know this because you've experienced this. You've been on the other side of this. People know when what we're saying is more about us than about them. They just know. Because you know that. You've had some people offer you some constructive criticism, and after their constructive criticism, you walk away thinking, you know what? I know you couch that as constructive criticism. I heard you say you just have my best interest in mind, but their tone and their words communicated something different. You walked away from that conversation not feeling built up because you felt like it really was more about them than about you. So when it comes to the words that we choose, this is important. Intent, I'm not trying to be cute, it rhymes. Sandra, it rhymes. Intent is as important as content. Intent is as important as content. It's difficult to receive content when we suspect someone's intent, right? So do not, here's summing it all up. Then we're gonna give you this first dynamic. Don't let any unwholesome word come out of your mouths, but only, he's like, narrow it down, check the ID. Only words that are good for building others up. Even hard words that build people up, make them better. According to their needs, not yours, that it may benefit those who listen. This is what following Jesus sounds like. Which brings me to the first of these three dynamics that we're going to talk about in this series. Something we should all keep front and center, something we should all keep in mind, something we expect others to take into consideration when they're talking to us. So here's dynamic number one. Number one is simply this: words are not equally weighted. Words are not equally weighted. The title of the series is The Weight of Your Words. Number one, words are not equally weighted. Some words weigh more than others, and no one's gonna write this down because you already know this, but we're gonna talk about it anyway. Negative words weigh way more than positive words. I bet you knew that. I bet you knew that, and I bet I knew that because of the words that come in our direction. Now, there's been lots of studies done on this. It's so interesting. And, based on the marketplace studies, they say it takes anywhere from 5 to 9 positive words or 5 to 9 positive expressions or statements to counterbalance one negative. So everybody knows that all the words don't weigh the same. 5 to 9 positive to counterbalance one negative. But that's in the marketplace. When it comes to marriage, when it comes to your relationship with your kids, when it comes to your relationship with your brother or your sister or your cousin or somebody, again, we're talking about the people inside circle of relationships, I think it's more like 30 to 1. It's not based on any research, just my own insecurity, I think. But anyway, it's more than 5 or 9, right? Let me put it this way. Growing up, you remember almost nothing that you said to your parents. But there are things they said to you, you will never forget. All that good advice, right? The conversations that began with, son, never forget. That's the only part you remember. You don't remember the other side of it. It's like, yeah, I remember he was telling me something that was real important. I don't remember what it was, or we just forget. But the negatives, the critical, the cynical, the comparison comments, those arrows stuck, right? They were barbed. They're some of our clearest memories. I'll tell you one of mine. When I was 16, my goal was to look as much like, and some of you don't know who Peter Frampton is, so I brought a picture. I wanted to look like Peter Frampton, okay? Some of you remember Peter Frampton. Some of you are like, is that Jesus? No, it's not Jesus. It's Peter Frampton. And back then, believe it or not, I had the hair to pull it off, but it required, obviously, not cutting it. And my mom loved it. My mom loved it. Now, some of you are thinking, I don't know who Peter Frampton is, but I know who Napoleon Dynamite is. And when I watched Napoleon Dynamite with my children years ago, I didn't think it was funny. I felt like it was like a biography of my life. It was so awkward. Anyway, so my mom, we can move on. Yeah, so my mom really liked my big curly hair. In fact, to her dying day, honestly, she'd say, when are you gonna let your hair grow out? I miss all those curls. I'm like, they'd long gone, Mom. Anyway, so my mom liked it, but my dad hated it. And he would tell me, okay, don't lose respect for my dad because this is just the first part of the story. And he would tell me, he'd say, Andy, it makes you look like a girl. Don't laugh at that. I'm supposed to get some sympathy, like, oh, okay, you are a tough crowd. It's like, I think at Buckhead Church, I heard some, like you really in Brownsbridge, yeah, but not here. Anyway, he would tell me, it looks like a girl. And I'll never forget, here's the moment that stuck in my mind. I'm standing in the foyer of our house in Tucker. I remember where I was standing. And I walked in the front door. I had just gone to get a haircut, and I had gotten it cut short-ish. You know how we do? And he walks in, and he looks at me, and he says, and I quote, now you look like my son. And I remember what I thought. Here's what I thought. Whose son did I look like an hour ago? And how did I respond to that father wound? I followed in his footsteps and worked for him for 12 years. Because those weren't the only words he said. But I forgot most of the other ones. I mean, he was been my biggest cheerleader. He's still my biggest cheerleader. In fact, he exaggerates the things I've accomplished when I talk to him. He's 90 years old, and I go see him, and we have the most interesting conversations. He just tells me over and over how proud he is, and I can do anything. It's like he's still cheering me on, like, you're going to make it, Andy. I know you're going to make it. I'm like, I think I'm done making it. I'm not trying to make anything else, okay? But, he's my dad. I'm still 16, except, with a haircut. So anyway, the point is this. I mean, he way outweighed the negatives with the positives, but I can still picture standing there in the foyer and him telling me that. That's the weight of words. And here's what you don't think and I don't think. Your words could weigh that much to someone and you don't know it. He does not remember ever saying it. And of course, I'll never forget it. We remember those negatives because the negatives weigh more. And all of us are gonna slip up and wound the folks we love. The only way to avoid that is to die early, and I don't recommend that. So it's imperative that we load up. Come on, this is the point, all right? We're gonna shut this thing down in a minute. But it's imperative that we load up on the positive and constructive. I mean, not 5 and 9 to 1. I mean, 20 to 1, 25 to 1, especially in the relationships that matter most. And this is so important. If you're a parent, look up here, if you're a parent, or you're a manager, or you're somebody's boss, this is how you maintain influence. I mean, if you have to leverage your position in order to get people to do what you want them to do, you're not a very good leader. I mean, positions are important, and titles are important, and org charts are interesting. But in terms of influence, if you want to have influence with people, including your kids or your grandkids, or even in your marriage, then you load up on the positive and the constructive. That's what gives you influence. It's what ensures that constructive criticism, when you need to give constructive criticism, it's what ensures that constructive criticism is actually received and embraced and adopted and acted on. It's what ensures that negative comments result in positive change. Now, let me just say something to the dads real quick. And I don't want to make this a parenting thing, but I just want to say this, okay? Because and maybe it's because I'm this way, and I am this way. Dads, if you're kind of a man of few words, but your few words tend to go negative quickly. I mean, you don't say a lot of positive things, but if something goes the wrong way, you're pretty quick. Listen to me, if you want your correction to impact your children's direction, if you want that correction to actually make a dent, actually make a difference, to impact the direction of their lives, you have to adjust your ratio. Not because your criticism and not because your discipline is incorrect. It's just a numbers game. It's a balance game. It's a ratio game. It's the way we're all designed. That we need far more positive than negative if the positive are going to make a positive impact on our lives. You know this because you're on the receiving end of it. But again, this is the problem. This is why we're talking about it for 3 weeks. We underestimate the weight of our words. And Jesus followers can't underestimate the weight of our words because Jesus is asking us not to, because we are to demonstrate the love of God through Christ, not only how we act, but how we speak. So dads, I'm almost done with you. You're familiar with I know we are all familiar with portion control, right? So this is proportion control when it comes to your words. And both require self-control. Look up here. Sarcasm will not make your kids tough. Sarcasm will just make it tough for you to connect to your adult children. Trust me. Make the change. Change the ratio. Because you love them. Because your Heavenly Father loves you. And He's calling you out to do what's difficult, to do what's uncomfortable, but to get that ratio right so that your kids, so that your grandkids, so that the people who are close to you will not be offended, but will be led and be better off, will be built up because you have spoken to their need and you understand the weight of your words. So words are not equally weighted. Negatives weigh more. Negatives are absolutely necessary, but they bounce and they wound if they are not the exception. We've been told, you've heard this, we've been told that it's impossible to have too much of a good thing, you've been told that it's possible to have too much of a good thing. Have you heard that it's possible to have too much of a good thing? And you thought what I'm thinking. Nothing comes to mind. But anyway, I guess it's possible to have too much of a good thing. Well, that is not true. That is certainly not the case when it comes to words. No one, I'm no counselor, but I feel pretty confident about this. No one traces the root of their problems back to too much encouragement. So, for the people you love the most, the people you care about the most, overdo it. Overdo it. And that's where I want to leave us today. Here's 2 questions. When it comes to the weight of your words, when it comes to the significance of your words, when it comes to the weight of your words and the relationships that matter the most to you, where do you have work to do? And here's the hard one. And who hopes you'll get to work soon? Even if it's uncomfortable. Even if that's not what was modeled for you. Because it was modeled for you by your heavenly Father through his Son, who came to speak words of life to each of us. So, let no unwholesome word proceed out of your mouth, except such a word as is good to build others up according to their specific need, or as one translation says, according to the need of the moment. And we will pick it up right there next time in part 2 of the weight of your words. Heavenly Father, easy to talk about. For some of us, this is easy to do because we're just better people. We're just wired this way. We're just full of encouragement. For others of us, Father, not so much. And even for those of us who just love to encourage and encourage and encourage, sometimes we just back down when we need to say the hard things, the hard loving things. So wherever this lands with us, would you please open our eyes and help us catch a glimpse of where we are, where we aren't, and catch a glimpse of you, who have called us to walk into this way of love, to walk in this way of love, and to love others as you have loved us, and to love them with our words. So give us eyes to see and ears to hear. And Father, beginning today, give us the courage to respond. In Jesus' name, amen.